Good afternoon, friends. My name is Pankaj Dumka, and today I will be discussing with you second law of thermodynamics. But before starting this law, I would like to tell you something. Lot many students used to ask me, "Ki sir, what is the best book to follow so that we can excel in GATE or engineering sub-examination?" So the book which I used to follow is by Professor P.K. Nag, and the book title is Engineering Thermodynamics. It is a very good book. You should follow this book. Now, second law of thermodynamics. Now, second law of thermodynamics, when we engineers used to talk of two statements, Kelvin-Planck statement and Clausius statement. But before exactly speaking of Kelvin-Planck and Clausius, let us discuss that why these laws exactly came into existence. We all know that the first law of thermodynamics says that the the energy of universe is a constant, or if energy in one form disappears, then equivalent energy some other form has to appear, but here E1 has to be equal to E2. But this law fails to talk of that in which direction this will be possible. We all know that in nature, every process is a spontaneous process. That means it follows a direction. For example, water always flows from a high elevation to a low elevation. Heat always flows from a high temperature to a lower temperature. These all are spontaneous processes. And the first law of thermodynamics failed to tell us this. It will not tell that what is the exact direction in which any process is occurring. Here comes the second law of thermodynamics, which is basically the directional law of nature, which tells that in which direction which process will occur. All the processes in nature, all the spontaneous processes in nature occur because of a finite potential gradient, whether it is temperature, whether it is elevation difference. These all are the cause of something which is happening. Just like consider a case of temperature. If there is a temperature difference, then what will happen? Heat will flow. If there is an elevation difference, what will happen? Water will flow from top to down, or if an object is kept at some height and we make it free, then it will fall because of that elevation difference. So all this cannot be explained with the first law, so second law came into existence. You have seen Joule's experiment where Joule said that in a cycle, the amount of work done is equal to the amount of heat transfer in this cycle. It is true, absolutely true. But but will the total heat, be converted into work, or in other terms, that work can be totally converted into heat? Total conversion. But can heat be totally converted to work? No. You cannot totally convert heat into work. It is not possible. So here second law came into existence. This is explained by second law. This is told by second law, that we can totally convert work into heat. But if we talk of heat, we cannot totally convert it into work. So to understand it more further, we have to understand what exactly a cyclic heat engine is. And before understanding cyclic heat engine, what is a heat engine cycle? A heat engine cycle is that cycle where the net heat transfer to the system, total heat transfer to the system, is getting converted into total work or net work from the system. So if this is my system, this is my total heat, so this is my total work. I'm not saying that this is the only heat. This is the total. Lot many sources of heat may be there, and lot many sources of work either on the system or by the system will be there. So total amount. This is what this our heat engine cycle is. For example, consider a piston cylinder case. In this, we have a piston, and we are supplying heat to it, because of which the internal energy of gas rises, and because by virtue of this it is doing some work on its atmosphere, let us say W1. It has reached here. Now what I am doing, I am giving some work to it from this new position so that it can reach its original position, and here it is losing some heat. So starting from 1, going to 2 and coming to 1, in this we have two heat interaction, Q1 and Q2, and we have two work interactions, W1 and W2, where Q1 is given to the system, Q2 is taken from the system, W1 is done by the system, and W2 is done on the system. This is a simple case of reciprocating engine. Now consider second case. Second case will be of a thermal power plant where you have a boiler, you have a turbine, you have a condenser, you have a pump and back. In this, you are supplying heat to this boiler. Turbine is doing some work. You are releasing some amount of heat to condense the steam at the exit of turbine, and you are supplying some work to this pump. So this is a cycle in which this is a cycle performed by this engine. This example is of external combustion engine because the combustion is taking place outside. The combustion is taking place outside of this engine or this turbine. Whereas the previous case was of internal combustion engine where we are transferring heat to this. Or we can say that we are supplying fuel and that is burning and doing all the stuff which we discussed. Here, from the first law, we can say that net heat transfer will be Q1 plus of minus Q2. Minus sign is telling that heat is leaving this. This is Q net. And what is W net? It is the work done plus minus W. Minus sign again is telling that this much amount of work is done on. From the first law, as this is a cycle, so this has to be equal, that is net work has to be equal to net heat transfer. So, we define a term here, which is known as efficiency of this particular cycle, heat engine cycle. And efficiency is defined as net work done from this engine to that of heat given to this. That means we can write this as Q net upon Q1 because W net and Q net, they are equal for a cycle. So this thing will be Q1 minus Q2 by Q1, or simply 1 minus Q2 by Q1. So this is the thermal efficiency of a heat engine. Now, few more things required to understand Kelvin-Planck and Clausius statement. They are thermal energy reservoir. What are thermal energy reservoir? Thermal energy reservoir are basically the bodies whose heat capacity is infinite. By saying infinite heat capacity means if I draw some heat from this thermal energy reservoir, if this is my thermal energy reservoir, if I am drawing some amount of heat, now consider the case. You have learned that if you have a glass of water, which is hot water basically, and you extract some heat from it, what will happen to the glass of water? Its temperature will reduce because the water is having a finite heat capacity. But as the heat capacity of this thermal energy reservoir is infinite, so you take out heat from it, there will not be any change in temperature. The change in temperature will be very meager, if at all. It will be very, very, very close to zero. The change will be zero, negligible change. Other way around, if you supply heat to this thermal energy reservoir, what will happen? If this thermal energy reservoir is having infinite heat capacity, then it will absorb the heat. Every bit of energy which you supply to it in the form of heat, it will absorb it. And what will happen to its temperature? No change. Infinite heat capacity. So, thermal energy reservoirs are bodies which are having infinite heat capacity. Now, let us take an example of an engine. This is my engine, which is working in a cycle. It is taking heat from a thermal energy reservoir which is at a higher temperature, and it is supplying heat to another thermal energy reservoir. It is rejecting heat to another thermal energy reservoir which is at lower temperature, T2. And in return, it is giving us work. So this is a schematic representation of my heat engine, where this thermal energy reservoir, which is at high temperature from which this engine is gaining heat, is called as source. This is source. And the thermal energy reservoir, which is absorbing heat, or the engine is supplying or rejecting heat to this thermal energy reservoir, and this thermal energy reservoir is called as sink. Now come to Kelvin-Planck statement. Kelvin-Planck statement. What is Kelvin-Planck statement of the second law? It says simply that you can never make an engine which is 100% efficient. That means the efficiency of engine can never be 100%. By saying that efficiency of an engine is 100%, just go back to this formula. And it says efficiency is 1 minus Q2 by Q1. By saying this, that this is 100%, simply means Q2 has to be 0. That means efficiency will be 1 or 100%, which is not at all possible. Because you always know from the second law that you can transform or convert work totally into heat, but heat cannot be totally converted into work. Some amount of heat has to be rejected. And by saying that if an engine is 100% efficient, we means that we are not rejecting any heat to environment. How can this be possible? So this is my Kelvin-Planck statement, which says that it is impossible for a heat engine to produce net work in a complete cycle if it exchanges heat only with bodies at a single fixed temperature. It is impossible for a heat engine to produce net work in a complete cycle. This is the catch. Mind it, cycle is very important here. If it exchanges heat only with bodies at single fixed temperature. What is the meaning? It means that this is my engine. It is gaining heat from a thermal energy reservoir which is at temperature 1, and in return it is supplying work, and there is no heat rejection. No heat rejection means no thermal energy reservoir, and it is connected with only one thermal energy reservoir. That means this will be equal to Q1, or simply efficiency is 100%, which is not possible. And if any engine is doing so that particular engine which converts all the heat to work is known as PMM1. That is perpetual motion machine of first kind, which is not possible. It is not possible at all, mind it. So this is Kelvin-Planck statement. Its meaning is, if you have an engine and you want to extract some work from this engine, then you will be requiring two thermal energy reservoirs, one at higher temperature and another one at lower temperature, for this engine to produce this work in a cycle continuously. If these are my thermal energy reservoirs. Some people used to write like thermal energy reservoir H or thermal energy reservoir L. This simply means higher, this means lower. Higher temperature at lower temperature. Now there may be a possibility that you have an engine which is working in a cycle and it is connected to two bodies. This is body 1A and this is body B. Body A and body B, they are not having infinite heat capacity. They are finite heat capacity bodies. This is Q1, this is Q2, and I am getting W work. So here, in this case, I am getting this work because of what? Because of the difference in temperatures in two thermal energy reservoirs. The moment this temperature vanishes, as these bodies are of finite heat capacities, so as this will give heat to this engine, what will happen? Gradually its temperature will decrease and its temperature will increase. A time will come when both the bodies arrive at a common temperature. At that point, this engine will stop working. Now, coming to the second statement of the second law, and that is Clausius. Clausius statement of second law of thermodynamics. It says it is impossible to construct a device which, operating in a cycle, will produce no effect other than the transfer of heat from a cold to a hot body. It is impossible. What is impossible? That you have a device which is working in a cycle, again very important, working in a cycle and transferring heat from a cold body to a hot body. That means T2 is less than T1. And produce no effect means what? This is Q2, this is Q1. We have this only. This is impossible. So what is possible? That means we have to produce an effect. We have to show some effect here. And what is that effect? The effect is this. If you have to construct a device which will work in a cycle and extracts heat from a cold space and transfer it to hot, then you have to do some work. And if you are not doing some work, then this device will not be possible at all. So this is the Closey statement of second law of thermodynamics. Friends, one thing here I would like to tell you that the Kelvin-Planck statement acts as a basis for any engine, any work-producing device. And the Clausius statement work as a basis for the refrigerator or a heat pump. Refrigerator is a device whose sole purpose is to create a cool environment, to maintain a body at a lower temperature, lower than the atmospheric temperature. Whereas a heat pump is a device whose sole purpose is to maintain a space or a body at a temperature above than the atmospheric temperature. So these both, heat pump and refrigerator, they work on this Clausius statement. So let us see what heat pump is. And before that, let us discuss what is refrigerator. Basically, in refrigerator, we have a section known as evaporator. Then we have something known as compressor. Then we have something known as condenser. Then we have something known as expansion device, and this is my refrigerator. What happens in this case? A body which has to be maintained at a lower temperature, say T2. Then the atmosphere, which is at higher temperature, say T1. Then in this refrigerator, a refrigerant flows, which gains heat from this body, and in return it gains basically the latent heat of vaporization. It vaporizes, it cools this space, then moves to compressor. Here the compressor do work on the vapors, increases its pressure and supply it to condenser, where the compressed vapor releases latent heat of condensation and cools down to liquid state, here Q2. If this is 1, let us say this is Q1, let us say this is Q2. And then come back to this expansion valve where the pressure drops, and in this way our refrigerator works. If you see this device, if you see our Clausius statement, this is my device which is extracting heat from lower temperature object, transferring heat to higher temperature, and this is possible because of the work we are doing. So, and this is my refrigerator, the same thing, extracting heat from lower space, transferring heat to higher space temperature, atmosphere, and doing in return doing work. So if I draw it schematic, then this is my refrigerator working in a cycle, transferring heat to a high temperature, which is basically atmosphere, and receiving heat from a cooler space, which is refrigerator. Basically extract the heat from a space which is to be cooled. And why to extract this heat? Because nothing is a perfect insulator. So this cool space will automatically gains heat from atmosphere. So the rate at which, or the amount of energy in the form of heat which this cool space gains from the atmosphere, refrigerator is basically remove that energy with that rate, at that rate. Here we define a term known as COP, or coefficient of performance, of this refrigerator. I used to designate this like this because this is the way we study refrigeration. I have studied it from C.P. Arora, and this is the way in which C.P. Arora writes COP. So what is COP? COP is the parameter which tells that how your device is performing. it is different from efficiency in the respect of its representation. But if you look into detail, they are the same. How? Because COP is defined as desired effect upon work done. So if you are concerned with this refrigerator, so what is your desired effect? Your desired effect is the output. What is the output? What is required? The thing which is required is to cool this space. So my desired effect is this. And what is the work done? Work done is basically the input which you have given to this device to perform this task. Hence, this is the COP of your refrigerator. So, if you apply your second law of thermodynamics to this, then you can write that W is nothing but Q1 minus Q2. Sorry, if you apply first law of thermodynamics, then work is what? Q1 minus Q2. So this will be simply Q1 minus Q2. So in this way you represent your coefficient of performance for a refrigerator. What is a heat pump? Heat pumps look like this refrigerator only, but there is a difference. If this is my heat pump working in a cycle, the difference lies here. The heat pump extracts heat from atmosphere and supply heat to a cool space, or the space which has to a hotter space, the space which has to be kept at a higher temperature, this thing. And this is doing because of the amount of work which we are doing on it. So here my desired effect will not with this amount of heat extraction, will be the amount of heat which I am supplying to this space, because heat pumps are meant for this only. So the COP for this device or heat pump will be the desired effect, which is the amount of heat which I am supplying to heat this space divided by the amount of work done. So basically, there is a relation between heat pump of COP of heat pump and refrigerator. If you say like this, that you have something called a device like this, and it is working between these two temperatures, T2 and T1. This is higher temperature, lower temperature, transferring heat from lower temperature to higher temperature, and this device is doing this work at the expense of this work, W. So if I look this device as a refrigerator, so my desired effect will be this, cooler. So this will be Q2 by Q1 minus Q2. And if I look this device as a heat pump, so my desired effect will be this Q1. So COP will be of heat pump, that is Q1 divided by Q1 minus Q2. If you subtract this, heat pump minus COP of refrigerator, you will get Q1 minus Q2 divided by Q1 minus Q2, which is 1. Or COP of heat pump will be equal to COP of refrigerator plus 1. Why I have solved this? Why I have derived this? There is a reason behind. There is always a reason behind some act. So let us say I am heating a space with the help of a room heater. I am supplying some amount of heat. I am supplying this connected to a battery. Connect this to a battery. So this is getting heat because of this amount of electrical work. This space is getting heated. All this VI is getting converted into heat. But now I want to heat the same space, but instead of supplying this electrical work to this heating coil, I will be using this work, the same amount of work, in a heat pump. Now what will happen? Now I know that COP of this heat pump is this Q1 by W. And COP of heat pump is 1 plus COP of refrigerator. That is Q1 by W. So what is my Q1? It is W plus W into COP of refrigerator. Friends, here in case of simple heating coil, you are getting the energy in the form of heat which is equal to the energy which you have supplied. electrical energy. But here, in case of heat pump, you are getting not only this W but some extra part. So this is always having an edge over your direct heating. So this heat pump is better to install. One more thing with respect to this, I want to say that okay, COP for this vapor compression cycles, or the cycle which we have shown to you, this one, this is a vapor compression cycle, is always more than 1. But as work done can never reach infinity, so this work can never be 0, because if you are making this work 0, then you are doing what? You are transferring heat basically from a lower space to a higher space without giving or supplying work, or without some energy dissipation. So this is not possible. So work has to be always more than 0. So that simply means that COP of refrigerator or COP of heat pump will always be less than infinity. They cannot reach that value. So friends, today till this, in next lecture we will be studying about equivalence of Kelvin, Planck and Clausius statement, and types of reversibilities and irreversibilities, and Carnot engine and Carnot theorem. Thank you for your patient hearing. If you like this video, then please do subscribe.